Welcome to Swiftly Spoken, a fan-made Taylor Swift podcast in which we break down her lyrics, deep dive into full album retrospectives, and theorise about what may be coming next. We are your hosts, Lisa and Cameron, and in the wake of Speak Now, Taylor's version, we are revisiting our Speak Now Stories series by discussing Taylor's inspirations and hidden secrets behind the songs on her third studio album. Last time we discussed the first few tracks Taylor wrote for the album, and in this episode we're going to be going through another 5. So we're going to be starting with one of the most infamous tracks on the album because it really was inspired by one of the pivotal moments in Taylor's career. That is September 13th, 2009, the VMA incident. It basically inspired the song Innocent. So she started writing that song right after the whole thing occurred, but she didn't finish the song until around 6 months later. So it was such a difficult thing for her to process.
Well, yeah, and you can still see that even in, like, with Miss Americana, the fact that she referenced it. And I think that was the first time we really got to see her talk about it properly and the effect that it had, and the fact that she initially thought that that whole moment was like they were booing her, and then also then the fallout from it, and the fact that that was the only thing that was obviously talked about from the whole night, and it became this huge, iconic, infamous moment that then followed her for probably about a year, really. Just, constantly questioned about it. Interesting that, you could see, obviously, in the moment how affected she was by it, and the fact that it took so long to write clearly showed that there was a lot of emotions to have to process before she herself could fully kind of accept it.
Definitely. And the secret message of this song, which points us towards it being inspired by this particular moment, is life is full of little interruptions. And when she explained this song, she mentioned that Innocent is about something that really intensely affected me emotionally. So there you go. It took a while to write this one. I was fortunate enough to get a chance to perform this song on the VMAs, and that's the first time that anyone ever heard it. So again, it was a very full circle moment when she decided to debut this song in the place that it was initially inspired at, which you would think that this closes the circle, and I think that's how she felt about it and what she wanted from this song, for it to be kind of a way to close this off and finish it. But unfortunately, as we know, like you said, everything unfolded very, very differently. She went on to say, putting out an album called Speak Now, where you're supposed to say what you feel when you know how you feel, I felt that performing that song on that particular award show was appropriate. I hope everyone likes this one. So how do you feel about Innocent, and how do you feel about it in the wake of Taylor's version?
I think in the wake of Taylor's version, it's going to have a very different and interesting meaning. And this is the strange thing. And I think Speak Now, ironically, is the album that does have a lot of this, where as it's evolved, they've kind of had like certain songs that are better than Revenge, as we talked about in the last episode, and Innocent, for example, and even things like Dear John was obviously references on Midnights. They've kind of like all got different meanings now, and potentially controversial or a different look because of stuff that's happened in the wake of them. And I think, Innocent, I'm not the biggest fan of Innocent. I've just always thought it's a nice song. I listen to it when the album's on. I never skip it, but I don't go out of my way like, I really want to listen to Innocent today. And I think, it's just an interesting one. I'm glad that she did reference it at the time. I think it was a really nice reference. I think also, unfortunately, it was too much of a nice reference because she obviously forgave him in that song.
I think that's why this song for me is very bittersweet, because I see it as her being like giving so much grace to a situation which was so in this person's control to not have done. Just sit there. Why don't you just sit there and let the moment pass?
And even like, I think there's a lot of innocence to that song as well, of like being like, oh, it's all fine, and just hoping that, you can just be like, look, it's fine, I totally understand, and things will blow over. When obviously that person couldn't, just move on from it. But it's an interesting one, Innocent, and I think the Taylor's version will also be quite interesting.
We can recontextualize it quite a lot to fit more of Taylor herself as a person and how she may have felt when she was re-recording Speak Now, because she's recently made it quite clear that she was recording Speak Now when she was still 32, which is the age mentioned in this song. So I think in a way that's how she may want to process this song as well, and rather than saying it about someone else and this very particular moment in her career, it's more of a general message of, it's okay, you're 32 and you're still growing up and things can still go wrong. But people still believe in you, and especially as we know right now that she was going through a bit of a rough time. So I think that is how maybe many of us will revisit this song when it eventually does come up.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that. And I think Taylor said before, I think during the like All Too Well short film promo, read Taylor's version about like these songs were once about my life, but they're now taken on different meanings. So the next song chronologically in regards to the recording and writing of Speak Now is Enchanted. So basically Taylor met Adam Young from Owl City slightly after the incident with Kanye West at the VMAs, and after an exchange of emails, basically Enchanted was born. So the fact that we know or potentially know who this song is about is because of the secret message, which is quite blatantly says Adam, so it couldn't really be about anyone else. And basically Taylor said that she wrote Enchanted about a guy who I was enchanted to meet. Obviously he was somebody that I had talked to a couple of times on email, and then I was in New York and went to meet him. I remember just the whole way home thinking, I hope he's not in love with somebody. It was just wonderful, that feeling. Like, oh my gosh, who's he with? Does he like me? Does he like somebody else? What does it mean? I got home and he had emailed me and said something like, sorry I was so quiet, I was just wonderstruck meeting you. And so I incorporated the word wonderstruck into the song as a, hey, this one's sort of for you. Which I think is really sweet. As ever, it's very wordy. Taylor is very wordy when she describes things, but it is quite sweet, and I think it's such a lovely song. Imagine if someone wrote that about you, wrote Enchanted about you. That is such a lovely, that's the thing. If you're a nice person, you have nice things written and said about you.
Exactly, you are
correct.
have
to treat people nicely.
Yeah, if you're just like Adam was, and he was just a nice person. They had a nice little exchange of emails, as we're going to see now. Nothing really came about, but he's still got a lovely song written about him and never said a bad word about each other ever. So, yeah.
No,
but no,
exactly.
This is such a lovely song to write from just one night. That's crazy.
I know it is. It is to write such a romantic song about something just so simple. But what's interesting is that unlike the fallout from Innocent that was negative, ironically, it was actually quite sweet, the response. So basically, the following Valentine's Day, Adam Young recorded a cover of Enchanted, in which he responded admitting that he was also enchanted to meet Taylor.
Oh.
And he also wrote a little letter, bless him, to Taylor that said, Dearest Taylor, I'll be the first to admit that I'm a rather shy boy, and since music is the most eloquent form of communication I can muster, I decided to record something for you, as sort of a reply to the breathtaking song on your current record. This is what I wanted so badly to tell you in person, but could never quite put into words. Everything about you is beautiful. You're an immensely charming girl with a wonderful heart, and more grace and elegance than I know how to describe. You are a true princess from a dreamy fairy tale, a modern Cinderella. I'm terribly sorry it's taken me such a long time to reply, but I figured Valentine's Day was the perfect time to write this note to you, to simply say I was enchanted to meet you too. Which is so sweet.
Oh my god, it's
so lovely.
And also just the song itself, I love that cover. I love it, and I love how he, adds that little twist at the end, and he kind of says, I was never in love with someone else. It was you. I was so in love with you, Taylor.
Bless him. And then Taylor ghosted.
Yeah, she ghosted.
She never responded, bless her.
Yeah.
So,
which he's been asked about it many times, and because obviously doing something so public like that, and I remember reading the Tumblr post as well where he was like, I couldn't believe it when I heard Wonderstruck, and he was just listening to the song just like we were, you know what I mean? He never knew.
Yeah.
And then he kind of went into the booklet and deciphered his own name. Can you imagine being that person and finding out?
How exciting. I think that's so exciting. That's such a lovely thing. And I think we've said before that the Taylor's version is basically like a response back in my eyes.
Oh, I love
Taylor responding back to him.
Yeah.
And I think it's just lovely. I think the Enchanted the song is just gorgeous, top tier Taylor song.
It's such a good song.
The fact that it is the only Speak Now song on Eras Tour is like a joke, because there needs to be more, but it just shows that song just encapsulates Speak Now. It's almost called that, which is really interesting. So clearly it was a favourite for Taylor, the fact that she felt like it was going to kind of encompass the entire album, which I know that there's lots of kind of opinions about that, but I personally, even though I love the song, I don't think it is relevant for Speak Now, because so many songs on that album are not enchanting, like Story of Us, Last Kiss, whereas the theme of Speak Now, if these are all the things I should have said and wanted to say, it makes so much more sense, because it is incredibly diaristic and incredibly honest and brutally honest sometimes at a lot of points in it, But I think Enchanted, love it, love it, love it. Like, how do you feel?
Oh yeah, one of the best songs on Speak Now for sure. I've always adored this song. I love the story behind it. I'm so glad that even though nothing eventually came out of it, they were still really good feeling all around. We got two amazing versions of the song. Oh, love it. And I love how you've kind of like contextualized Taylor's version as the ultimate answer, because in my heart that makes sense. I like that. So yeah, I can't wait for it. It's going to be great because obviously she's sung it every night and we can hear how well she does it. So I'm sure there's an amazing rendition.
I'm not concerned.
After this, we can say that in or around late 2009, a couple of songs about a certain John Mayer were created by Taylor. Now, both of these seem to be at a moment in which the relationship was probably at its best, as they both kind of depict him in a good light. Like we've mentioned, we don't really want to describe these songs or talk about them and do a test of like who are they about and why that's important, because it's not. We've ultimately always say this. Taylor songs are important, and you know they relate to everyone differently, and they're important to everyone because of different reasons. However, it is true that in these two particular songs, Ours and Superman, there are blatant descriptive features that line up with who we think these songs are about. But another thing, though, that's interesting about these is that they are both featured in the deluxe edition of Speak Now, and there is no secret messages to kind of give us any more clues about who they may be about. But from what we can gather from the songs themselves, we can basically tell that they are about the same person.
Especially with like Superman having like a bad reputation in Ours and stuff, being, you know, having tattoos, like all crazy.
Gap between your teeth. Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So again, it doesn't make a difference who they are or aren't about, but it is also interesting to see how she was writing really diaristically and really not holding back. She really did say speak now, and she decided to speak now.
Yeah, interestingly with Ours though, even though we haven't had like a secret message, Taylor performed the song on VH1 Storytellers, and she gave quite a long, very like slightly rambly explanation behind the song, which I will read now. So basically she said, I've been writing songs because it's kind of like a message in a bottle, which is obviously an interesting reference. You write a song and send it out into the world, and the person you wrote it about might hear it, and they might end up knowing how you think about them or how you feel about them. And sometimes you write songs that you know you really want to play for someone because you want them to hear what you think about them. And sometimes you write the song and you're like, if they knew that was about them, I would get angry emails, so I'm just going to not tell them that it's about them. Anyways, this song that I'm about to play for you is the first kind, as it's a song I wrote about someone that I really liked at the time, and what was kind of happening in my life is that, interestingly, there was lots of opinions about who you fall in love with, and all of a sudden she said, your friends are chiming in, and in my case, it's like, they don't look cute together, he's got tattoos, he's too tall for her, he's too small for her, he's too young for her, he's too old for her. And I think that when two people fall in love, it should just be about those two people. And when I was dating someone that people didn't think I should have been dating because I shouldn't have been dating them. And then she continues by saying, anyway, back to the story. When I was dating a guy that people didn't have too much of a good opinion about me dating, I wrote this song to let him know that I didn't care about what anyone else thought. And it's called Ours. So that's quite a rambly explanation. And to be honest, the song is quite self-explanatory, but what is interesting is obviously later references to obviously that person and the fact that it was not a good person to be dating and all the kind of opinions about that person. But Ours is such a gorgeous song. I really, really love it. I think it's such a beautiful love song and a really lovely image of, even if the whole world's kind of against you, if it's just about you two, it doesn't really matter. And as long as you two are in love with each other, you can just, kind of go through the world of like, it doesn't matter what people say about us, which I think is really sweet.
Just wanted to pop in to say, very sorry about the audio quality on my end for the last 15 or so minutes or whatever it was. Plugged the wrong microphone in. Anyway, we're back now to good quality, so sorry about that. But yes, talking about Ours, I also love it. It's such a romantic song, again a bit like Enchanted. You wouldn't really believe the inspiration behind it created such an amazing song and such like poetically written. Both of them are really like whimsical and romantic, and then you see like, or you hear about the supposed backstory and you're like, wow, she really knows how to spin a really magical story.
Talking to someone over emails turns into the song Enchanted. It's just like, what?
But moving on from Ours to the other deluxe track, Superman, there's not really much to be said about it, although like we mentioned, we kind of do know who it probably is about because of a lot of things lining up with like descriptive features. Something in his deep brown eyes has me saying he's not all bad like his reputation. But the most interesting thing about this song is that one of its lyrics turned out to be the secret message for Dear John, which is a song that we will be discussing in our next episode of Speak Now Stories. And that lyric is "Loved you from the very first day," which is, I just love when Taylor does things like that, and she like ties it all together, like with Forever and Always, and love that.
I miss secret messages.
I know.
I really, really do. I wish they were still a thing, and I wish that she even did them for like the vault tracks, because they're just so fun.
They really are.
Even
when they're cryptic, it doesn't matter, because
exactly.
It's still like such a little insight, and it's an extra. It almost acts like a bit of an extra secret lyric. In the case of 1989, it tells a whole story. It's so interesting.
And what's interesting though now is that the vault kind of serves as that though anyway. As we've said with Red, it does fill in the missing puzzle pieces. So I guess the new songs themselves do fill in the pieces and connect certain things, and it'll be interesting to see if that's the same with Speak Now. Because with Red, I feel like those vault tracks were so integral to all the other songs.
They filled in so many blanks.
All linked. Oh yeah, filled in so many blanks, enhanced so many different stories, and were just similar perspectives, but from a different angle. So yeah, it was just really interesting. So I'll be intrigued to see if that is the case with Speak Now. But I do miss those hidden messages.
The final song that we're going to be speaking about in this episode was written around 2010, and it was inspired by a very particular moment again. So we started this episode off with Innocent, which was inspired by a very specific moment at an award show, and we are ending this episode with another song that was inspired by a very specific moment at an award show. In this case, it was at the 2010 Grammys, at the 52nd Grammy Awards. Taylor performed with Stevie Nicks. Unfortunately, this performance was received really badly by a certain critic who really, really criticised and went in on her. And that moment and that response to her singing at the Grammy Awards inspired the song Mean.
The thing I find interesting is that I don't think the performance is that bad. Okay, it's not the strongest vocally, but realistically, part of the performance, she was singing like You Belong With Me, but in a really different way that the studio version is, and how she's ever performed it before, in a bit more of a kind of bluegrassy way. So she was performing in a way that she doesn't normally. She was then performing a Stevie Nicks song, who then obviously sings differently, but she was having to match the way that Stevie Nicks was singing, because obviously they're singing it together. So I just think that, and this is obviously what Taylor says, that he was just being unnecessarily harsh and clearly had a vendetta against her. And it wasn't just about her singing. It was, he didn't like her, and he saw an opportunity to then just be mean, basically, which is obviously what the whole kind of song is about. But I find it interesting that the performance isn't that bad. It's not the best, but it's really not the worst, and really not that bad. There's been a lot worse performances on the Grammys, not by Taylor, but in general, and across award shows.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, you're completely right. It does seem like this person was being mean to be mean, and that's the point of the song, right? But it wasn't just that they were criticizing certain moments or certain things. It was just such a attack of her character as well. And like, think about it, she's very, very young at this point. She's on the Grammy Awards, which are a big thing. And I guess that's also why maybe that they were more critical as well, because it is a big moment. So as it is such a big moment, there is also a lot of scrutiny placed upon the people who are performing on that night, because it's, it's supposed to be the biggest night of music and all of this. So this is what she had to say about it anyway. She wrote that when you do what you do, you put yourself out there for a lot of people to say whatever they want about it. There are a million different opinions from a million different people. There's constructive criticism, there's professional criticism, and then there's just being mean. And there's a line that you cross when you just start to attack everything about a person. This song is about how I handle it and sort of my mindset about the whole situation. So again, like we've just discussed, there is room, of course there's room for professional and constructive criticism. There always is, especially for young performers or performers who are doing things differently and they need a helping hand to kind of like realize, oh, maybe I should try a different tactic or go down a different route. But in this case, it was just attacking her character and her as a person as well. She also told the audience before performing Mean at the VH1 Storytellers event, I wrote the song Mean about a critic who really, really, really strongly disliked me. And with critics and journalists, I respect that it's their job to put out constructive criticism. I usually take that criticism and I'm like, okay, maybe they're right about that. I will work on that. This critic hated me. Hated. Just like assault rifle, one after the other, just like missiles, hated me. So I felt really helpless and I felt there's nothing I can do about this. And so I did what I always do. I went into my lonely little corner and I wrote a song about it. And then it went out into the world and it became like an anti-bullying thing about the fact that people pick on each other and it's not okay. Wherever you are in life, whether you're in middle school's awful for the bullying thing, oh my god. But in junior school, it's still there. High school, still there. Still bullies, awesome. College, people still picking on you. And then you go out into the real world and people still pick on you. It just affects everybody. All I can say is with this song, I want to thank you for everything that you did to make it into something that was bigger than just a critic who hated me, because we won 2 Grammys for this song and it's all because of you. So that's what Taylor said to her fans before, explaining the song before performing it. And what I found really lovely is that it did become something bigger. And this is like the 3rd time that we've said, like, songs can change their meaning and they can really affect people differently depending on their lived experiences. And that is something that I think every Taylor Swift fan can feel, because they take Taylor's songs and there are moments that you're like, wow, I can connect that so perfectly with my life, even though we have never been criticized by a journalist after performing at the Grammys.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think it's because she kind of captures a universal feeling and a universal emotions, that even though the reason why she has kind of felt that emotion or that feeling, it doesn't matter if it is someone at school that's bullied you or someone in the workplace or a critic, you felt that, you know how that feels, so you can relate. And I think that's why that song just did become something more than what it initially was about. And I really love that it did have become just bigger than it was originally, and the fact that it kind of took on a totally different meaning.
And the amazing music video that went alongside it, that again, it broadened the message of the song so much more as well. And I think a lot of people, especially those who were in high school at that point, probably, they were able to relate to it. But like Taylor says, it's not just then, it's throughout your whole life. There's going to be some people that along the way, unfortunately, aren't going to be great. And talking about that, the secret message of this song is, I thought you got me. But the cool thing about this, and something that Taylor did mention, is that eventually the song won 2 Grammys, which really ties it in this big loop. And something that really as well ties it perfectly in a knot is that she performed the song at the 54th Grammy Awards in February of 2012. And she famously changed and said, someday I'll be singing this at the Grammys.
Yeah, no, I think it's such a full circle moment and such a kind of FU moment.
Oh, she must have felt so happy.
Got the last laugh. Oh yeah, like the fact that she won 2 Grammys for it, she then got to perform it, and then yeah, like you said, in that bridge she got to sing the "Someday I'll be singing this at the Grammys," and you could hear everyone kind of cheering. And I love Mean. I've always had a kind of soft spot for Mean, and I think especially when you're younger, you relate a lot to it. So it's got such a nostalgia, that song, for me. So I really, really, really love this song, and I love the kind of message and its original story, and then what it kind of became, and the fact that it kind of had a bit of a full circle moment at the Grammys, which is like the perfect
Exactly,
place.
Yeah, I love how it all just... And that's happened sometimes with some of Taylor's songs and how they were inspired and where they end up. And I think with Taylor's version, again, like you were saying with Red, a lot of the songs have a different ending to what we thought was their ending originally, like All Too Well, for example, and how it became something so much bigger. And I love that its ending wasn't that it just lived on an album and was appreciated by us and became kind of like a meme. It's become bigger. And with these Taylor's versions, one of the things that is so interesting is seeing how these songs develop in a completely new life, really. 10 years on, 12 years on, 15 years on from their original lives is so interesting to see. And I think Mean is going to be another big one on the album. There are so many amazing songs on Speak Now that I cannot wait to just relive and listen to again.
Oh, me too. Like, I think Speak Now, especially like if you were kind of around, like when I kind of discovered Taylor, it was obviously in Love Story about 2009. So Speak Now was kind of one of those first albums that was like getting to hear it for the first time and properly seeing it start to unfold and starting to be involved a bit. So I think there's quite a nostalgia with that as well for me. Like, this was kind of the first album where I was like, oh, Taylor Swift's release, you know, whereas before it was just like I went and bought Fearless because it was already out, whereas Speak Now I just remember the kind of announcement and the lead up and then downloading it. That was the first album I ever downloaded on iTunes. So yeah, it has such a nostalgia, and I think Mean is like the epitome of that kind of nostalgia.
So that leads us to the end of these 5 songs that we are covering in this episode of Speak Now Stories, and the final 5 we'll be covering in our final episode of Speak Now Stories, which will be out hopefully on the same week as Speak Now Taylor's version will be coming out, which is so crazy to think. But for now, one thing that we do want to mention before we leave is that we have, since our last episode, now got the Speak Now Vault track names. Unfortunately, they seem to have been rolled out a bit earlier than what Taylor was planning. It seems like they may have been like some leaked track lists, so we didn't get a Vault game, which I'm so sad about. I wanted my little puzzle.
Yes, me too, but because some idiot decided to like steal a load of vinyl and flog it on eBay, we didn't get the bit that's so fun about getting the vaults, and we didn't even get the video. Like, I feel like they should have still done it.
I wish they would have. But...
even if it was just them coming straight out, because I just feel like we never got to see it. So the Speak Now Vault will forever be a fan made thing of like, you know,
the
that
little
image will
purple
always be
vault.
fan made. Yeah, and we'll never get to hear a little bit of the snippet, you know, with like Red.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's
Fearless.
true.
We got to hear like the even though it was all messed up and you had to kind of replay it back, we never got to hear even that, which is just frustrating.
That's so sad.
Fearless was, that's the thing, it's like Fearless was fun, but Red, the vault for Red was so fun watching everyone be like, what on earth?
Yeah.
And then it clicks like, oh, it's a word search.
Yeah.
And then everyone kind of went mad.
Yeah.
So, and then you had to type it in, don't you remember? And then you could take a photo of yourself being like, I unlocked the vault.
Oh, we were robbed.
So,
we were robbed. Why
we were
do
so
leakers do
robbed
these
because
things?
some idiot, it's so annoying, but at least we've got it,
Yeah.
and at least it's not, you know, it hasn't hopefully been leaked too much.
No, it seems like the track list, exactly. The track list has been, like, there was a funny little photo going around, and because of that, then Taylor decided to publish the backside of the CD where we have the track list, but hopefully keeping our fingers crossed that nothing more. Now, the names and the features, obviously we have found them out. So I'll go through the names and then I'll mention the features, and then you can tell me which ones scream out to you now that we know what's there and what's not. So 6 vault tracks are Electric Touch, When Emma Falls in Love, I Can See You, Castles Crumbling, Foolish One, and Timeless. And we have 2 features within them. We have Electric Touch is featuring Fall Out Boy, and Castles Crumbling is featuring Hayley Williams from Paramore. So how are you feeling about them?
Which I would like to,
Yeah.
yes, I would like to comment that we predicted that. We got that right, so tick there. I'm feeling excited, and I think what is interesting is now that we've got them, certain references from music videos, so like Castles Crumbling seems like it was referenced in Bejeweled with the castle at the end, which is crumbling, which is interesting. And then lots of people are saying that the light bulb that we chatted about in our last episode from Karma, I think is a perfect reference to Electric Touch, like she's literally touching a light bulb.
Exactly.
And even the kind of Timeless reference as well of her in the hourglass as well. So I think I just love all these kind of things where it's like suddenly certain Easter eggs make more sense, but I'm really excited. The one that stands out to me is When Emma Falls in Love.
Right.
Because there's been a lot of kind of chatter that it might be about Emma Stone, obviously a close friend of Taylor, which I would love, because obviously that would be about a very certain relationship with a certain Spider-Man.
Oh my God,
which would be
yeah.
really kind of interesting. So we'll see, but I whatever they are, we just know that they're going to be very Speak Now, very honest, very brutal, very diaristic, which is just exciting. I'm really, really excited.
As far as the features are concerned, very punk rock, right? Very alt.
Yes.
Like, we've always...
Yes,
a lot of people in the fandom see Speak Now as her most rock-leaning album, so...
Which I find interesting, because it's only really one song for me that I find is rocky.
Better Than Revenge.
Which is Better Than Revenge. Yeah,
right.
That's literally it. And Haunted, potentially.
I guess it's the most
But
rock
not
out of
really.
all her albums, if you look at it that way, because it's in quite a transitional period where Fearless and Taylor Swift are much more country on its own. Well, I guess I would say more like Debut is more country, Fearless is country pop.
Fearless is more pop.
Yeah, and then Speak Now, it has a lot of things going on, but there are more rocky vibes to it, though I couldn't really say it is rock at any point.
No.
Pop rock maybe, and then obviously we go into more and more pop, and then alternative, blah blah blah. So I don't know, maybe we'll hear a bit more of the Vault track leaning more into that kind of production.
It's interesting because with Red we chatted before it came out whether, because Red is a very split album of like the Nashville countryside and then the pop side, and whether the Vault would kind of highlight both. And ironically, even though there is elements of both, there's a lot more of the pop side on the Vault with like The Very First Night, Message in a Bottle.
Yeah.
But then there is still the countryside with obviously I Bet You Think About Me, Nothing New. So it is quite divided. So it'll be interesting to see what elements are picked up from Speak Now and are kind of taking more of a centre stage in the Vault. But it's one interesting thing though I find about this Vault is that a certain two very famous unreleased tracks which are supposedly have been rumoured to be Speak Now, but obviously there's debate about certain ones and their timelines. But they are stereotypically shoved as Speak Now tracks is obviously Battle, Let's Go, and Drama Queen, which both are
not there,
non-existent.
So that's a very interesting point.
It's interesting.
So as we have mentioned in our previous episodes, we kind of went through the Vault a few times and what could be on it and ideas of all of this long list of names. And isn't it funny how a couple of these weren't on any list at all, which is so interesting, like Electric Touch, When Emma Falls in Love. Whereas the other ones we did kind of have a notion of at least the names, but like you said,
Crumbling.
which I'm so glad is there, so glad. But like you said, those two in particular, in a way, I know that this is a bit of an unpopular opinion because a lot of people were very sad that Battle isn't there. Battle/Let's Go, but I don't really mind. I think the Story of Us does the job better anyway, and I'd rather get something that we never knew anything about.
Taylor's vocals would be really fun to hear on Battle, and it'd be really cool to like almost get like a Better Man Babe thing. It's probably going to sound a bit different because Battle is very demo, so that would be so cool. But I would prefer to just have more songs, like in a really greedy
it sounds
way.
Bad, but
I would just much prefer to have more, like, because it just means we get, like, rather than taking up 2 extra spaces, we've now got extra songs. But I think what is interesting with it, especially with Drama Queen, is whoever it was leaked by, wherever it came from, somebody knew that this song was not going to be on the Vault, and therefore leaked it because they knew that it was never going to see the light of day.
That's interesting thought,
leaked, which I think is interesting. Whether that came from the inner circle, whether that came from more direct, I don't really know, but there's definitely a reason why. And what is interesting is that might potentially explain why things like This Is What You Came For, the original demo, was also leaked, because that is not going to appear in 1989. So I think it's interesting that like Drama Queen was leaked when it was, because it seemed very like timely and like clear that, because realistically there's other tracks out there that could be leaked, but the one that is not being appeared and is not appearing on a Vault got leaked is interesting. I'm really happy with the Vault. I think the titles sound really interesting.
Definitely.
I think there's some rumours, isn't there, going around of what they're about?
Yeah, there are a few rumours. Now, we don't know if these can be trusted or not. We can mention them quickly. For example, Castle's Crumbling. There's a lot of rumours about it being kind of in the same vein of Nothing New. Speaking about more of her worries about her career. We have no idea because we don't really know where this information is coming from. There have been some posts by people claiming to have heard these songs or have demos of them or whatever. I Can See You. Apparently there's going to be some high school imagery. For Foolish One, apparently the rumours are saying that it's Taylor calling herself the foolish one for perhaps being too romantic. For Timeless, there's rumours of it being very poetic and perhaps classified as a Quill song. And
that'll be interesting.
Exactly, yeah. So, these are the things we know. Electric Touch, I think there was rumours about it being more of an alternate or alternative and rock vibe to it. Well, that makes kind of sense with the feature. And I think that's it. So that's what we know, or what we may know. Again, take that with a pinch of salt when it does come out and things turn out to be completely different. Don't blame us. But very interesting Vault tracks.
With the features, how are you feeling about? Because obviously with features before, especially with Taylor features, there's a very kind of like a bit of a kind of controversial history with them. Of, like, when someone's put up as a feature, they're not really a feature. Like, do you think Fall Out Boy are going to get the Chris Stapleton
oh yeah, interesting
kind of treatment? Do you think was it Hayley Williams is going to get the Phoebe Bridgers treatment or the Maren Morris treatment?
Yeah,
like,
this is
how do you feel about that?
interesting. I don't know. With Taylor, it's such a mixed bag sometimes, but and also it's very interesting that Speak Now never had a feature before. Like with Red, at least we could kind of see the types of features, and they are very much echoed in the Vault features as well. Run follows a very similar suit to Everything Has Changed, for example. Except for I Bet You Think About Me, which, you know, Chris Stapleton, I mean, he showed up,
It's
but
hardly a feature.
not for long. Yeah, but no, he obviously it is better because of him, but it's he was treated in a similar way to I don't know, the Himes or the Maren Morris of this world. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it's going to go. I think, honestly, considering everything that we know as well with the Lana and how she knows that fans kind of do want features to be features and want the featured artist to have a little moment. Even Maren Morris, when she performed recently at the Eras Tour, she got a little bit more of a moment than she ever did on that song.
Yeah.
So I do think that maybe these ones are going to have, like, you know, they're going to have a little verse or two to themselves. I do think so.
Hopefully that would be really good. And I've said from the beginning that I was really worried about Speak Now.
Yeah, that's
Vault,
true.
And that was one of my big concerns. So anyone that has been following along for a while, I'm no longer concerned.
Oh, good.
Very happy.
Good to hear it.
It's all good. The features are like kind of what I expected, not what I expected, but I'm happy with them. And I think, again, they are following a similar pattern of what we've seen of like someone that was around during the era and then someone that kind of encompasses the era. So like Fall Out Boy, who were kind of around as well, and so was Hayley Williams. They're kind of a bit of both, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like in this case, both of them are more like, because sometimes in the other vaults we saw that someone was a bit more like up and coming or a bit
younger
more
artist.
Exactly. Yeah, that perhaps like echoes the mood of that era. But I think in this case, both of them were obviously very much established artists during that time, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what vibe this vault gives off, because they're very specific types of, you know, both from very, very big emo bands from back in the day, which Taylor has said that she really, really enjoys that music and the lyricism of that music. I mean, Fall Out Boy have a lot of iconic songs with iconic lyrics from that time especially, so I'm going to be interested to see.
And she's performed with them as well, which is interesting. So, yes, we'll see. Exciting stuff. And obviously, when it does come out, we will give all of our reactions. Good and bad as ever.
Yep. We'll see how it all goes down. Hopefully it's all good, but we can never tell. So until then, though, that's all we know for now. Those are the 5 songs for this episode, and those are the vault tracks and everything we may or may not know about them. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a like on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with us, subscribe over on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @SwiftlySpokenPodcast. For now, we will see you next time in our final episode of the Speak Now stories before Speak Now Taylor's version drops.